Welcome to This Constitution. My name is Savannah Eccles Johnston.
And I'm Matthew Brogdon.
And today we're going to talk about Thomas Paine and his most famous pamphlet, Common Sense. But we're going to talk about some of his other work, too. So every American's heard of Thomas Paine and the influence he had on the American Revolution. But before we get to Common Sense, I think we should start with some background on Thomas Paine, an immigrant to the United States, kind of later in life immigrant, as an adult immigrant to the United States. So this man is born in England, and he is a failure at most things in his life before he immigrates. He has a number of failed business enterprises, and his hope comes from meeting Benjamin Franklin in London. And Benjamin Franklin gives him a letter of introduction and sends him over to the colonies, where he winds up in Pennsylvania. He's so sick, he nearly dies on the way over. It takes him 6 weeks to recover, and it's Benjamin Franklin's perfect personal doctor who has him carried off the boat and nurses him back to health and helps him get a job at, the Pennsylvania Gazette, the first actual American newspaper with all American content. And he takes it in a wildly political direction. And this is kind of the steps leading up to the publication of his big one, his 47-page pamphlet called Common Sense.
So when is this? When does he land in America?
Early 1770s. Okay. He's only here for a very short amount of time before he publishes Common Sense. So he takes over as the chief editor for the Pennsylvania Gazette. I think this is the name of it. And immediately takes it in a political direction. And it becomes kind of the first viral pamphlet, if you will. This is the world's first viral tweet, basically, 47-page tweet. It's 120,000 copies sold in 3 months, which is amazing. 120,000 copies in a country of 2.5 million people. That's what we're talking about here. And he will later claim that it sold 500,000 copies. Not in its first few months, but eventually throughout the Revolution sold 500,000 copies. So the question we have to ask is, why was Thomas Paine's Common Sense so ridiculously successful? Historians have said that without common sense, you don't have the American Revolution, or it takes much longer to get to the American Revolution. So what is so powerful about it? First in its style. What's so powerful about the style of his writing?
Well, Paine is an excellent writer. I mean, he's got a claim to being one of the most talented writers of the founding in a generation that boasted Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson and Gouverneur Morris and Alexander Hamilton. So this is an incredible talent that he has to begin with. But I think one thing that he does is he has a way of identifying the sort of core arguments, the core complaints. I mean, he's anticipating in many ways the argument of the Declaration because he's identifying the principal target as monarchy. Now, that's not obvious in 1776, actually. It is not obvious that attacking monarchy is the path to American independence because Americans had been making the constitutional argument under the British Constitution that the monarch was the legitimate authority in North America and that it was Parliament that was intruding and that Parliament had no right to regulate the internal affairs of America, and instead that it should be the Crown overseeing colonial representative legislatures. So when Paine puts out this pamphlet and says, no, actually, the monarchy is just bad root and branch, it really is a revolutionary claim. That it was not obvious we were going to just cast off the British monarchy. After all, our fellow former British colonies didn't do so. They remained in the British Commonwealth with the monarchy at their head. So I think that's one. He succeeds in doing that.
Well, let's dig into that one a little bit more because you're right. This is one of the key revolutionary things he's going to say. He's not going to just attack monarchy. He's going to attack hereditary monarchy as a particularly stupid idea. And you can really summarize his argument as even if the father's really great, there's no guarantee the son isn't an idiot, right?
Yeah, there's some pithy lines in there.
Right. So this is... So it's hereditary monarchy that's the problem. And what's interesting about this language is he uses kind of a biblical argument against monarchy, which is very common in this day to do. But given the fact that he doesn't believe in the Bible, this is an interesting thing for him to do.
Well, I do think Paine is adept at this too. He's adept at making arguments he knows the public will be sympathetic to, even if he himself is not. Many of us struggle with that. Many of us struggle to articulate ideas that we have trouble with, but that other people might find appealing. And Paine does not have trouble channeling the demos, the public mind, the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Even when he has trouble with it.
Well, and one thing he talks about is, it says, look, the Old Testament kings, when they finally got kings, which was a mistake, just led the people astray. They led them into idol worship and all of the things. So clearly, monarchy is not God's way. And this is really important because he's saying God does not ordain kings. Mm-hmm. There's no divine right of kings.
Yeah, it was the second best sort of alternative in the Old Testament.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is big. And this also goes back to why he's so convincing, is he's making arguments that people will understand, very religiously toned arguments, but he's doing it in a writing style that's very open. Like this is not, he's not writing like a college professor, thank goodness. He's writing, and he's writing even a more familiar way than like Washington Post op-eds. That's why I compare it to like a tweet. It's like a long, 15-page, 15-post tweet or something. It's very common language.
America's greatest rhetoricians have been able to do this. People often think that eloquence is about saying very sophisticated things, or things that sound very complex that you kind of have to pick apart. Mm-hmm. You have to diagram the sentence to find out what it means. And the truth is, our most eloquent statesmen have been people who are capable of taking sophisticated ideas and expressing them very simply.
Right.
I mean, Twain did this. Lincoln, Frederick Douglass, Washington was more or less adept at this. I mean, he was capable of writing public letters that were very accessible to people. And Paine is unexcelled in his ability to do this. Yeah, his line about monarchy is actually that the great joke of monarchy is that it so often gives us an ass for a lion. You start out with the lion and then you wind up with, the kids are just not what they ought to be.
Right.
He's got a real talent for speaking the people's language, but in a very eloquent fashion. And we'll see that. We'll talk about the American crisis in a little bit, which furnishes some of the most famous lines in American literature.
Right. Okay. So first, hereditary monarchy is a stupid idea.
Yeah.
And then second, he is going to assail the idea that we should even be trying to fix the relationship with Great Britain. Uh-huh. And you can kind of compare this to like, it's a bad relationship. They might say they're sorry, but if you go back to it, they'll keep behaving the way they always have. You got to break up, kind of a thing. That's kind of the language he's using here. Mm-hmm. Is there's no point in continuing the relationship. Mm-hmm. So it's time to break up. And you can break up because it turns out there is such a thing as an American people. This, I think, is one of his most important contributions, is he's saying, look, guys, I just moved here. So I'm not a native Pennsylvanian. I don't view myself as a Virginian or a Massachusettsian, whatever that is. I view myself as an American. Mm-hmm. He takes his oath to the state of Pennsylvania almost immediately upon arrival, saying, I can see that you share a lot more than you think you do. And in fact, you are a distinct people as opposed to the British. You are not British anymore. Yeah. You're American. No one had really said that yet in the same way.
Yeah, and that's going to be an important role that certain statesmen play in the founding of encouraging Americans to see themselves as Americans.
Yeah.
Paine does it as an immigrant, through getting people to see an American nation. Mm-hmm. Alexander Hamilton famously is going to do it later, right? Another sort of immigrant child of America. In fact, I've always loved Richard Brookhiser's biography of Alexander Hamilton is subtitled American. It's Alexander Hamilton, American.
Yeah.
And there's there's sort of an exclamation point on that. And Paine fits that mold too. Tom Paine, American. And there are certain statesmen that break through a sort of provincial outlook that a lot of American statesmen had. They had loyalty to their states. We've talked in previous episodes about how deeply rooted self-government is at the local level. And America would not be the country that it is if self-government weren't rooted at the local level and rooted in a union of states. So that's very important. But, Madison's later going to say that there's a centripetal or centrifugal, which one is it? One or the other, force that pushes unions apart, makes them want to fly apart. right? Like pieces on like they're all tied to a string and you're spinning them around and they just want to fly apart.
Yeah.
And so you need something at the center that holds them together. And Madison's going to say that's the big objective of the Constitution and of the framers of the Constitution, is to create that cohesion at the center to hold this union that might come apart together. And people like Paine at key points in the American founding are just critical to come along and say, there is such a thing as America, and there is such a thing as an American people.
Yeah.
And it's worth defending and fighting for and acting as one people.
Right. And you can be functionally independent because there is such things in American people. You make a point about Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Paine, both being immigrants and being able to see the American people as a kind of one big unit. That's something immigrants have consistently done across our history, is been able to kind of pull us out of provincial thinking and say, no, this is what America is. I can tell you because I'm coming in and can see kind of the bird's eye view of it.
You see that even now in the midst of sort of coming out of the end of the 20th century with the fall of communism. We've lost some of the contrast between a society grounded in freedom and a society grounded in authoritarianism and collectivism. And in many cases, it's immigrant voices, people who grew up in tyranny, who can look at America and say, no, don't lose your way. Sort of hold the compass and say, no, the compass still points toward freedom. And that's a very important role that people play. It gives you a certain perspective. One we didn't mention was James Wilson. I don't want to leave him out.
Okay.
Poor James Wilson, Scottish immigrant.
He's always left out.
He does this too. Yeah.
All right. So, by the way, one last note on this. Thomas Paine is in some quarters credited with creating the name United States of America. He capitalizes it.
How's that?
Common sense.
Oh,
he says instead of like a lowercase United States, it's uppercase United States of America, as in one unit. Because
that was in the spring of 1776.
Yeah, it's published in January 1776.
Be curious. We talked about all this other stuff. I'm curious what some of the things from the First Continental Congress and Second Continental Congress in 1775 say. I know they speak of, these united colonies.
Yeah, I think it's lowercase is the key.
Oh, I see.
He uppercases it.
He uppercase and makes it a title.
Yes,
the United States of America.
Yeah.
As opposed to them just being united being an adjective, states being the sort of noun, and then America modifying it, making it one title. The United States of America, not these United States of America.
Well, and later we should also mention that some people wonder if he helped write the Declaration of Independence as well. There's some talk about that.
I feel that's a little like the Shakespeare writing the Bible thing. I don't know. It's a little much for me.
I know, it does seem a little ridiculous.
Okay.
But all right, so then independence. So Great Britain is a bad relationship. We need to end the relationship and work on ourselves for a while. And we can, because there is such a thing as America. And in fact, we have to, because we have some kind of duty from history or for God or from something to be this free nation, is what Thomas Paine is trying to say. So America has like a duty to the world to become free and independent. So it's not only you can, but you have to. It's necessary. America is the one that's going to step forward in this moment and do it. So that's the crux of his argument. Hereditary monarchy, stupid. Oh, sorry.
Is that always sort of part of memorable revolutions? This sort of providential character, we're convinced we're doing God's work.
Either God's work or history's work.
Right? That's right. It's either providence or history.
Yeah, I don't.
One or the other. And there's a certain providential character that revolutions tend to take on.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. And he's tapping right into that.
Yeah, this reminds me of, Walter Russell Mead has a whole book on American foreign policy that talks about how this carries forward. It's hard to understand American foreign policy and the way we argue about America's place in the world without understanding the way that Americans think about America's purpose.
Yes.
Or its duties is another way to put that.
Right. And that can be both in an isolationist sense, protect yourself as a city on a hill, or in a very liberal, involved in the world sense.
And it's important to note, we've maintained that tension between the notion that we sort of have a providential calling to, promote something in the world, call it we like to call it democracy now.
Right.
We used to call it liberty or freedom.
Right.
As Jefferson put it, an empire of liberty stretching across the continent, right? But we've held the tension between that and a kind of healthy introspection that says, you know, a kind of Puritanism that says we're a people apart and we don't feel the need to reform the nations of the earth. And the thing that the French Revolution is going to do is to lose that tension. The revolutionary foreign policy of the French Declaration of the Rights of Man, with its appeal to fraternity. We appealed to natural rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The French appealed to fraternity. Brotherhood, the brotherhood of all men. And for them, that meant a duty to carry the revolution forward beyond France, which is what embroils them in war with the UK. It embroils them in war with Austria.
Right.
Ultimately results, it translates into Napoleonic imperial ambitions. So Robespierre's revolutionary foreign policy is kind of like takes all the restraints that Americans have that sort of restrain us from trying to carry the good news to the whole world, right? Yeah. Extend the gospel of the Declaration, so to speak, to every tribe and people. Yeah. The French are going to say, no, it's got to go everywhere. Everywhere the sun, everywhere the sun rises, there will be French democracy.
This is his big argument. It is now published. And it's not just published, it's read out loud in town squares, this little pamphlet. And I feel like that would take a very long time to read 47 pages. But this is what's happening. It's being read out loud to people.
I mean, what else are you going to do?
Yeah, right. Good point.
Laundry?
Yeah, good point. It's a boring time.
It's boring. Okay. I mean, people do spend long periods of time in conversation.
So some estimates say that up to 20% of American households had one of these by the end of the Revolutionary War. So
it's a lot. What would be the equivalent now? 120,000 copies.
It's 60 million is what they say is the equivalent. That's like Harry Potter.
Would be 60 million copies in American homes. But even Harry Potter, that's like copies globally. Right?
Yeah. So 60 million worldwide. There's only a few books that have ever sold that much worldwide. What could they? I don't know. Harry Potter's got to be up there, right?
Sure.
We'll just say it's the revolutionary Harry Potter.
Yes, if you put them all together, I don't know.
Right. Okay. So though he does not make as much money as she does from it, so this does not make him a billionaire.
Authors got a really raw deal
back in the day
before the 20th century.
They did.
I mean, we improved this. People don't appreciate this. Our whole copyright and trademark law, which the Constitution did revolutionize the sense in which artists and authors and inventors get the benefit of the things they make. Right. And that was not altogether true.
So Thomas Paine did not have this benefit.
No, he did not.
He is struggling for money his entire life.
Too bad he didn't have modern American copyright law.
Right. Yeah. Well, this is pre-Constitution that he's doing this. So after you get Common Sense, he doesn't stop. He keeps writing pamphlets. And you mentioned earlier the American Crisis is his next most important pamphlet. And this one comes really early as well. 1777, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, that's right in the mid. The American Crisis is important because the American cause of independence rests on military victory. And military victory is not assured. Washington, while he wins in Boston in the spring of 1776, not long after Common Sense is published. I mean, you kind of have the succession. You got Tom Paine publishing Common Sense. The British flee Boston. They withdraw on St. Patrick's Day, actually, in March of 1776. And then it's a whole string of defeats.
Right.
With just a couple of spots of hope. Princeton and Trenton in the winter, in December and January in 1776 and 77. So the American Continental Army is having a rough time. George Washington is in the doldrums. I mean, this is the low point of his experience, both as a statesman and a military commander. So Paine is quite worried that the American people will lose faith, I think, in their ability to win independence.
Right.
And so in that moment, imagine these lines. You open this new pamphlet from Tom Paine, the author of Common Sense. And in fact, looking at
lines that Washington will have read to his troops.
Yes.
So let's put that as
And the first page of the pamphlet says, The American Crisis, #1. It's going to be a series of essays by the author of Common Sense, right? So this is bestseller.
Right.
These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from service to his country. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man. Tyranny like hell is not easily conquered, yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. Paine takes it on himself to try to galvanize American confidence in the face of what were a string of defeats for the Continental Army.
Right. Okay, so within 30 years of this, Paine is going to go from revolutionary hero, not only the man who may have sparked the revolution, but kept it alive at its lowest moment through the power of his words, to dying in obscurity in 1809 with 6 people at his funeral. What happens over the next 30 years? I mean, his rise has been meteoric in American politics. I mean, he hasn't even been in the States 5 years at this point.
Yeah.
And he's really hit the apex of American political life as a writer. How does it go so spectacularly wrong after this? He is going to go eventually to France because, revolution. Uh-huh. He's going to go and help with the French Revolution. And he's awarded honorary French citizenship along with George Washington and a bunch of others. And although he doesn't speak French, this is actually very American. This makes him very American. Although he doesn't speak French and doesn't really bother to learn, he gets elected to their national convention.
That's right.
Which is their legislature.
Yeah, he has a constituency.
Yes, he does.
He supposedly represents in this assembly.
Right. And immediately begins to make enemies. And he is eventually arrested and put in the prison of Luxembourg, where he's scheduled for execution because they're just chopping everybody's head off at this point. And it's
expensive to keep people in prison. It turns out a revolution functions much more efficiently if you just execute the people who have become inconvenient.
Just chop their heads off. So that's he's spared from this, by the way. This is such a good story. He's spared from this because the prison guard has the door open to his cell, and you're supposed to mark with a white chalk mark if they're supposed to be executed that day. This is how normal it is. And they put it on the inside of the door, and so the person doesn't see it. So he's spared execution. And by the way, why are they trying to execute an American citizen? Wouldn't the American ambassador get really mad about that? Governor Morris, the American ambassador at this point to France? No, Morris is like, oh, we don't claim him. He's an English citizen, and you're at war with England, so go ahead and chop his head off. Because he and Governor Morris are in a real personal tiff. So Governor Morris just totally leaves him out to dry.
Well, yes. So I'm sure the defense of Governor Morris on this is that Morris is the American agent in Paris through the terrors. I mean, capital T terrors is what we refer to this. It's so bloody. Morris manages to keep his head and remain alive in Paris and effective as a diplomat throughout this entire travesty while heads are rolling right and left. So Morris is a very, very adept politician. He understands French politics very well. He's completely loyal to Washington. And Morris is actually expending a lot of energy and political capital keeping other people alive. I mean, for example, Morris is responsible for smuggling out the Crown Prince, the Dauphin, in the middle of the terrors.
Wow.
It's the reason the entire royal family doesn't wind up dead. As well as a number of other folks protecting British shipping. I mean, in many cases, the French have apprehended American vessels. So he's actually got a lot of people he's trying to protect. And there is a real question for him. Do I risk the political capital, not only of himself, but of Washington? He's understood to be Washington's agent, helping out Tom Paine. And in theory, sure. But Paine had done a very imprudent thing. Paine had published a highly critical essay.
But this is after.
Was it after?
He publishes a highly critical essay of Washington after. He has a personal beef with Governor Morris at this point. Okay. He hasn't attacked Washington yet.
So the two of them are hammer and tongs already before the Washington
Yes.
thing. Okay, well, we'll talk about the Washington thing in a minute. But yeah, Paine is very isolated. Also, the fact that he doesn't speak French, he finds himself in the French assembly. And part of the problem is, like most revolutions, it quickly devolves into party politics, party factions. And he doesn't understand. He winds up allying himself sort of accidentally with a party faction, I think. And, the others see him as the enemy. And this is the danger whenever you wander into a political situation, however well-intentioned you might be.
Right.
You think, I'm just a good guy. I'm here to support the revolution.
Right.
Well, no, you're expected to take sides in this, bloody struggle.
Choose wisely.
That the French are engaged in, and he does not. Now, admittedly, lots of people who are French and in charge of things and savvy still wind up dead anyway.
Right.
I mean, I think even Robespierre winds up.
Yeah. So a couple of things here about Paine's demise. There are a couple of reasons, and one is interpersonal conflict, and two is some really unusual for his day ideas that he propagates. And these two often go together. How does he wander into the French National Convention and just completely blow it? Well, one answer is he really has this pure idea of revolution. He doesn't understand, I think in some significant sense, politics. And what you said, party politics, is what he's walking into. And he certainly doesn't understand the language, so that compounds the problem. So he really believes that republics are peaceful, that revolution is kind of the natural state, and positive, and he doesn't understand it for what it will be. And you see this in his other pamphlet, The Rights of Man, which he writes as a pushback against Edmund Burke's criticism of the French Revolution. So Gouverneur Morris does not help him out. But then there's a change, and James Monroe becomes the next ambassador to France, and he does claim Thomas Paine as an American citizen, and therefore Thomas Paine is released. Then he's brought by invitation, Thomas Jefferson's invitation, back.
And at his expense.
Back to the United States. And here he makes a series of fatal errors. He writes a letter to Washington because he feels like Washington betrayed him via Gouverneur Morris when he was in jail. Basically, you left me to die. And so he's really mad, and he attacks him as a hypocrite and unfeeling and a bad general. And basically, like, you're getting all the credit for the revolution, but you shouldn't because you were actually a terrible general and you're not that great of a person, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Washington wisely does not respond to this hate mail. And so Thomas Paine does an even worse thing. He publishes it. He convinces a friend to publish it in a newspaper, his criticism of Washington. So Thomas Paine is languishing in prison, and there's a change in personnel. James Monroe becomes the new minister to France. Thomas Paine sends him a letter, says, will you please do what Gouverneur Morris refused to do and recognize my citizenship? I am not an English citizen. I am an American citizen. Therefore, I'm a citizen of an allied country to France. Please help me out. And James Monroe does. He's released from prison.
Because they finally recognize his American citizenship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's released from prison, and he doesn't return to the United States immediately. Instead, he makes one of the greatest mistakes of his political life. He's really learned nothing about politics here. He's going to write a letter to Washington. And this letter to Washington is full of a sense of betrayal. Basically, he feels that Washington left him out to dry after, in some sense, Paine really thinks he saved the revolution. Washington abandoned me in prison. So he's going to send this really angry letter. Washington's not going to respond very wisely. Then Paine is going to publish it as an open letter, this criticism of Washington. And essentially this open letter is, Washington, you're a hypocrite, you're unfeeling, you lack the true revolutionary spirit. You weren't even a very good general. You get all the credit for it. You shouldn't have. You were a not great general. You're a bad character. All of the things. This is a dumb thing to do. Washington is beloved. Why attack his character personally? But this is what he does. Meanwhile, but wait, there's more. He's going to keep writing some really interesting ideas. He is an early critic of slavery. Great. He identifies as an abolitionist. He's also going to critique Christianity. Basically say that it's a false religion, and he's a deist, and all of these kind of things.
Yeah, he writes this pamphlet, The Age of Reason.
Yeah. Which
is, he's been steeping in French revolutionary politics. He's disaffected from his American, his time in America. I shouldn't say his American roots. He was only here for a few years. And he gives expression to this French impulse that the age of reason means discarding all sort of inherited forms of authority. We talked about this whenever we talked about, the folk. When we talked about the folk origins of the revolution,
right.
We talked a little bit about the fact that America sort of hangs on to piety. To a very religious character. The French sort of revolt against everything. It's not just monarchy and hereditary aristocracy and the old forms of government, but even traditional religion in all its forms, sort of rejected and replaced by what they think is rationalistic. They set reason over against revelation and religion,
right?
Which many of us would think might be a false dichotomy, but. Paine takes it on himself to be the sort of herald of this new age of reason, giving voice to this kind of French conviction, French revolutionary conviction about religion, which is not going to endear him to Americans either. I mean, this is just further alienated. So you've attacked George Washington, you've attacked Christianity. Americans are in the business of figuring out whether they're opposed to slavery or not. So that's right. A bit, maybe the scales are even there, but
he's also going to cause potentially some problems for property owners. He has this idea of a one-time tax, inheritance tax from big property owners to fund a universal basic income. So he's in some ways, a lot of his ideas are way ahead of his time. And this isn't going to endear him either. So he will stay away for a couple of years until at the personal invitation and cost of Thomas Jefferson, he will return to the United States in the early 1800s.
So private property and religion.
Private property, religion, and George Washington.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, and this is prefiguring in many ways the battles America will fight subsequently.
Yeah.
Does the revolutionary spirit, the Declaration's claim of equality, does it mean discarding all forms of authority, including, the authority of parents over their children, the authority of churches over their congregants, the authority of religion over the mind, and of course the sanctity of private property. This is what sometimes with the capital L, the leveling spirit. A sort of radical equality means eliminating differences between human beings. And that can't actually just be, sometimes we think about that in terms of property, but those differences, I mean, if you read Marx on the Jewish question, Jews can't be tolerated in the communist regime because they set themselves apart.
Yeah.
And you can't hold yourself apart and be equals. So any kind of separateness, any kind of distinctiveness, any claim to excellence, any claim to superiority, even if it's grounded in merit, wealth, productivity, virtue, is intolerable to that sort of leveling spirit. And I don't know that, Paine doesn't anticipate all of the radical implications of this, but he certainly is sort of, he's sensing the direction of many of these things. It's going to plague French politics in the 19th century too. But
right. So it doesn't pay in Paine's sense to be well ahead of his time. And in some way, this is interesting, he also, by the end of his life, is kind of not fundamentally American anymore. He may have helped to spark the American Revolution, helped to keep it alive.
Yeah.
But by the end, he's so outside of the American mainstream that he's more French at this point than he is American.
We noted this is his talent for giving voice to the zeitgeist, to the spirit of the age, means that much of his writing in the American Revolution the writing is patriotic, but that's not born of an actual patriotism on Paine's part. He's a revolutionary, not a patriot. That is a distinction.
Yes.
He wants revolution. I don't know that while he encourages Americans to see themselves as Americans, as a nation, ultimately his revolutionary ideas sort of deny a national character.
Yeah.
They deny attachment to a particular place in a particular country. This is actually still the debate we have in things like civic education and more broadly whenever we talk about politics and constitutionalism and the ideas of the Declaration of Independence, is to what degree should we be talking about democratic citizenship, right? The idea that our political allegiances are defined by a set of democratic ideals. We sort of praise them wherever we find them. And to what degree does our do our political loyalties or political ideas have to be attached to a particular place? Mm-hmm. Right? Do we understand ourselves as democratic citizens, or do we understand ourselves as American citizens? And that's a very real tension. It's a tension in scholarship. It's a tension in our politics. It's a tension in our foreign policy.
Right.
And I think Paine is definitely on the democratic citizenship side of that.
Yes.
That there's a universalistic democratic citizenship that people ought to embrace, and that tends to overwhelm and destroy national differences in some sense.
And leaves him a man alone.
Yeah.
In a sad sense.
Citizen of the world.
A citizen of the world is a man dying alone. And so his funeral is attended just by 6 people. And 2 of those people are a wife of a friend and the son who he helped to take care of, a Quaker. Maybe there's 2 Quakers. And then 2 free black men who are deeply appreciative of his writing on abolition. Mm-hmm. And he's buried and kind of forgotten. And what a sad end. I actually think maybe we should title this episode Thomas Paine, Revolutionary, Not Patriot, or something like that.
Yeah.
And that is really, it explains everything about his life.
Revolutionary or patriot?
Revolutionary or
Maybe
patriot.
We can put a question mark on it.
Yeah, but it kind of explains everything you need to know about Thomas Paine. How does he go from mega superstar of American Revolution to dying alone? And it's in exactly what you said. It's in the title. He is a revolutionary.
There is a certain warning in it of becoming disconnected from place and people. Mm-hmm. I mean, in some sense, the place we call home and the people that we love and invest in define us as human beings and sort of root and ground us. Mm-hmm. We ought to be looking beyond those circumstances and thinking in universalistic terms about what is right and wrong. What is freedom? What is liberty? What do these ideas require of us? What can we live up to? What can we learn from other people? But if you lose your attachment to particular people in a particular place, you are in danger of becoming unmoored in a way, and losing something human. I mean, there's something that human beings need from being attached to people and places.
Another important lesson we can learn from him is don't criticize George Washington. Dumb thing to do. So to wrap this up, Thomas Paine.
That's the other subtitle for the episode. Tom Paine.
Don't criticize Washington.
Don't criticize George Washington.
So to wrap this up, what do we take away from Thomas Paine? One, deeply grateful for his remarkable rhetorical skills. His ability as a writer helps to spark the American Revolution and to keep it alive. And also, he was a man who showed a serious lack of judgment at times. He was a perpetual revolutionary who dies alone and maybe teaches us some good life lessons along the way.
Absolutely.